What up, everybody? What is going on? Man, I love that beat. That's a Freeway, and it's called All My Life, featuring Nate Dogg. All my days up, I'm gonna be riding strap, east to west, back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, that's that jam. But what up, what up, what up? What's happening? So tonight, got another one for you. Make sure my sound's all right. What's happening? Yep, got another one for you. And of course, we know that this has all been coordinated and it's all deliberate, the riots, that is. But what I want to give you guys tonight is a little more details to support that idea, because we might know it, but in this world, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And that's why I'm here, to give you guys the proof, because I don't like to just get up here and say shit. I like to actually prove what I'm saying and show you what I'm saying. And this is why people like me and voices like mine are so dangerous to the establishment. So dangerous, in fact, that they have to consistently take our channels down, shadow ban us, keep our numbers low, manipulate our, the algorithm so we don't get as many views and whatnot, because they simply don't want this message getting out. But they can't just outright start banning people again like they were, a few years ago, because things have changed. We have a new administration in office now, and they're not going for that shit. So they're going to find these platforms. They're going to find other slick ways to stifle the message anyway because they desperately do not want people to know this. Now, the whole anti-ICE thing, that's what I mean is coordinated and deliberate. And it's coordinated because it's being run from the top down. The people in the highest office in the state, that would be the governor and his staff. And then you got the city mayors and the police chiefs and everybody underneath all involved. And the thing about it is, with the fraud that was going on, because the anti-ICE protests are all in an effort to protect the fraudsters and buy them time, because they know their time is up. They know that justice is coming and nothing can stop what is coming, but they want to buy themselves as much time as possible so they can move the money around, hide as much money as they can, and for the ones that are on the radar, make their getaway, because there's just been several major busts in Minnesota over the last couple of months, and 80 something people have been indicted already, and there's probably countless more that we're not hearing about. But all the while this was going on, the protesters were being encouraged and basically having a battery put in their back by the likes of Ilhan Omar, their state rep, their congresswoman from Minneapolis, their governor Tim Walz, and the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, or whatever the hell his name is. I guess Frey. I'll just go with Jacob Frey. And these guys have been very outspoken in denouncing ICE, denouncing the Trump administration, and encouraging people to go out there and fight ICE like it's some kind of virtue, like it was legal for them to do. And they've been doing this with impunity. And now Jacob Frey and Tim Walz are under federal investigation. Ilhan Omar has been under federal investigation for several years now, in case you guys didn't know. It's just everything got put on hold during the Biden era. This is why it's taken so long. But Trump just made a phone call to Tim Walz over in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and Trump's response to what he claimed the phone call was about seemed to be very positive. He seemed to be on the up and up, and seeming more favorable towards Tim Walz, and he laid out certain terms that needed to be met, and Tim Walz immediately complied. And now we're seeing the Minnesota State Police actually assisting ICE agents in shutting down these riots and continuing their operations to arrest these criminal aliens. Now, that must have been a very, very interesting conversation. That had to have been a very interesting conversation, because after all that big talk that Tim Walz was doing, to see him do a complete 180 like that, it's pretty, what's the word? Pretty unorthodox. It's almost like he's committing political suicide. And that could only be for one reason. And the reason is Trump leaned on him. Now, that's street talk. For those of you who may not be familiar with the street lingo, when you say somebody leaned on somebody, that means that they used whatever leverage they have against this person to force them into capitulation. Now, what leverage does Trump have against Tim Walz? What leverage does he have on Tim Walz? Well, of course, his involvement, whether directly or indirectly, with the massive fraud that's been going on. And it ain't just the fraud that he's been, profiting from by turning a blind eye to. They've also been profiting from the drug trade, the human trafficking trade, and domestic terrorism, helping to fund and funnel money to sleeper cells whose job it is to acquire large amounts of weapons and prepare for it, wait for the order so they can prepare a massive attack, similar to what we saw happen in Iran. So how would Trump lean on Tim Walz in a situation like this? Well, on the surface level, it would seem like, well, maybe Trump offered him a way out and said, hey, we'll let you slide, but this is what you got to do. But I don't think that's what Trump did, because Trump is a man of the law. And I don't think he did that, because these guys they've pushed the line. They've pushed it way beyond the line, right? What I think Trump offered Tim Walz was this: you're still going to jail, buddy, but here are your options. You either continue with this nonsense, I send in the military and we make a big public spectacle out of you going to jail, or you comply and you get to retire from being governor. You don't run again and you're just never seen or heard from ever again, but you go to jail and we keep it sealed. We keep the case sealed and we keep it quiet. That would get capitulation very quickly, because as a governor and as a public figure, the last thing he would want is to go down in flames by being publicly perp walked and publicly shamed in that way, because then it'll prove everything that we were saying about him right. So what better way to maintain your image than to accept the terms and say, okay, if you'll let me go quietly and keep it all sealed, I'll capitulate. And I think that's the deal they're all going to get. And they're probably going to take it. They would be smart to take it, honestly. But it doesn't mean that they will escape justice. All right. Now, I don't know if I mentioned to you guys about the Don Lemon updates, but it turns out that the Department of Justice has dropped their case against Don Lemon after having their case rejected by several judges. Minnesota judges, of course. And whenever you hear the term Minnesota judge, you should already know red flags should be going up in your head, because Minnesota is probably one of the most, if not the most corrupt state there is. And these judges, their freedom's on the line too. And I believe that everybody is going to go down, but because Tim Walz took the deal, they're going to go down quietly. Part of the deal also involves Tom Homan working in Minnesota directly with the governor. So the governor is basically going to have Tom Homan as his babysitter. And I think that's to ensure that when everything is all said and done and the mission is complete, Tim Walz quietly gets escorted out of the governor's mansion and into federal custody, and we never see or hear from him again. But that's yet to be seen. But what we are seeing is a total 180 from the previous rhetoric that we've been hearing from these people, and that alone should be of great interest. Now, when it comes to the Alex Preddy shooting, it turns out that Alex Preddy is a part of a network that coordinates with each other to stalk ICE agents and impede ICE agents. One of these ICE watch groups. And apparently they are well organized, so much so that they have their own coded language with emojis and everything. And they use a Signal chat group to communicate with one another. And a reporter actually was able to infiltrate their Signal chat group and has exposed it to the public. So that's one that we definitely got to take a look at tonight. Also, I grabbed a couple of maps to correlate some things for you guys to show you the coordination and how deliberate everything is, because it's one thing to say it, but it's a totally different thing when I can actually illustrate it for you and you can see it, because then it sticks. Also, you guys feel free to take screenshots of my slides or the maps or whatever I show, and you can share it on your social media page, take clips of the streams, whatever you want to do, post it on your channels, whatever. You know, but we got a lot to get into tonight, so let's not waste any more time. Without further ado, come on, what the hell's going on? Make sure you guys follow me on Rumble. If you're not following me over on Rumble, please make sure you do. Rumble's where you'll find all the content that's not available on YouTube. And if they ever zap me over here on YouTube, Rumble is where I'll be. All right. Also, go subscribe to the Citizen Man backup channel right here on YouTube in case they zap me here on Citizen Man TV. I can still broadcast from the Citizen Man channel and let you guys know where I'll be. But Rumble will be the #1 place to find me because, of course, Rumble does not censor like YouTube does. Also want to give a big shout out to my supporters, my brother Lee 14224 with that faithful support on the PayPal. And I got another PayPal from my brother Frank H. Shout out to you guys for that support. So we starting off the show nice with 2 supporters. If any of you other guys would like to support the show, you could do so also by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below, the links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click on the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. You can also find those very same links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. All right, make sure you guys hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that like button. We got 38 watching on YouTube and 27 likes, so got to get those likes up. Get those likes up and get the numbers up. Same thing on Rumble. Shout out to everybody watching on Rumble. David, Divining Rod, Lies That Bind, DJ Spin. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to all you guys. Appreciate y'all being here. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, man. So I don't know if you guys saw my community post, but I thought this was funny and worth sharing. Mark safe from being shot by ICE because I'm not a freaking retard. Gotta love it. Got to love it. I love it. That's my funny post, man. That's my funny post of the day. That made me laugh. Oh my God. Trump's the last president says, hey, my wife showed me a picture of her favorite uncle and you look just like him. That's why she stares and smiles. That's funny. That is freaking hilarious. I guess I look like everybody, man. Good thing I know who my daddy is. I'll be one confused mug, man. I'll be one confused motherfucker out here. Like, are you my dad? Golly. I couldn't live like that. I don't know how people do that to their kids, man. I don't get it. But anyway, Trump, he said, I'd strip citizenship in a heartbeat, 100 to 200 Americans per month targeted. So everybody's up in arms. I don't know if you guys have heard about this statement by Trump, but everybody's up in arms and they're trying to use this to rile the black people up, to get them out in the street now. Trump gonna take y'all citizenship away. Well, what Trump is referring to are naturalized citizens who demonstrate disloyalty to America. In other words, who are actively aiding and abetting in this insurgency, whether they are in government and using their government position to aid and abet the insurgency, or they are average citizens using whatever power they have to aid and abet the insurgency. And here's the thing. It doesn't take much to be loyal to America. You don't have to kiss Trump's ass or hug the flag or anything like that. All you have to do is not get in their way. That's it. Like, that's literally it. Just don't get in their way or encourage other people to get in their way. Let the federal government do their job and stay out of the way. That's as simple as that. But the Americans that Trump is targeting are the Americans who, again, are aiding and abetting the illegal aliens and aiding and abetting the impeding of ICE, for example, and also aiding and abetting the fraud that has grown like a cancer within our system. That too. Federal judge dismisses Justice Department lawsuit seeking Oregon's voter rolls, because a lot of these Democratic states are rife with election fraud, and the Justice Department is attempting to collect voter roll data from these suspected voter fraud, election fraud states. And these states are fighting back, and they have their crooked judges who themselves, if they're in elected judgeships, like county judges and so on, they themselves have benefited from the election fraud. So, of course, the judge is going to rule not to have the election fraud, right? I mean, not to have the voter rolls turned over. But this is the judge right here that's trying to protect the election fraud in Oregon. Mustafa T. Kasubaihe. Now go to his country and find me a federal judge. Go to his country and find me a federal judge named Williams or Johnson. You see the problem here? And these are the types of people who are targeted to have their citizens stripped from them. These foreign infiltrators who are using their positions, whether in society or in government, to help push the agenda of the foreign infiltrators. Why in America do we have a man named Kasube sitting in such a high-powered position to where he single-handedly can protect election fraudsters in an entire state? Why is this happening in America? Because America has been infiltrated, and these are the types of people who are going to have their citizens stripped from them. Mustafa Tahir Kasube is an American lawyer who has served as a United States District Judge of the United States District Court for the District of Oregon since 2024. So guess what? Joe Biden auto pen judge, another auto pen judge. Listen, I'm telling you, this midterm, there's going to be a clean wiping of the slate. You watch and see. Because now that Trump got these Democrats to commit political suicide, it's over for them. Because now that they're not riling up the crowds anymore, the crowds are becoming displeased with them. And that was Trump's play all along. Now, the Cloward and Piven strategy. I'm sure you guys must have heard Alex Jones talk about this in the past, and other individuals talk about this in the past. But the Cloward and Piven strategy was written in 1966 by a pair of radical socialist Columbia University professors, Richard Andrew Cloward and Francis Fox Piven. Their plan was to overburden government systems, welfare, education, healthcare, and law enforcement, which is literally what we're seeing now, by reducing employment, overregulation leading to outsourced jobs, and increasing the welfare state, mass third world migration of unskilled labor. They've done that too, to the point of social and economic crisis. And that's kind of where we are. At which time America or any nation would be forced to accept a socialist communist state to save ourselves from the orchestrated chaos. So it's order out of chaos, essentially. And the main vein of this chaos is the influx of the third world migration. This would be your illegals. And as the Trump administration is taking steps to correct this grave injustice to the American people by removing these foreign infiltrators, you have American citizens who are desperately trying to impede those efforts and help push the Cloward and Piven strategy by protecting these individuals who are due for removal. And in their desperation to protect these individuals, they simultaneously are creating chaos with the help and funding of their local politicians and local non-governmental organizations who have been, a lot of cases, funded with fraudulent money, while the governors and the mayors have been turning a blind eye to it. Now, Minnesota is not the only place where this is happening. It's just the place where it's the worst at. And the reason why it's the worst is because Minnesota is kind of like the operating center, like the mainframe brain for the funneling of this fraudulent tax money. In other words, they have the biggest fraud scheme going on out of all the states. And a lot of the money that goes to these Democratic campaigns comes from those fraudsters by way of shell companies and third-party donors, etc. So they have their ways of moving the money around. And not only that, but they are in business with the drug cartels in helping them to launder their money, because the Mexican drug cartels were using their own people to set up real estate companies here in America and use the cartel money to buy property. But a lot of those guys have been busted. So now any person, any individual with ties to Mexico trying to buy real estate here in America over a certain amount of money, they are coming under great scrutiny. So it's very difficult for the cartels to wash their money that way. So they set up shop in Minnesota, started capitalizing on the drug habits of the Somalis because most of them are inbred anyway. And they also started using these Somalis to purchase properties for them and wash the money for them. Not only that, but the Somalis were also using the fraud money not only to fund Democrats, but to fund terrorist organizations over in Africa, and also to purchase precursor chemicals for the cartels to cook up the drugs right here in America because they can't get them in across the border anymore. So it's one big cesspool of criminality. And within these criminal circles, you have all these different levels of crime or different classes of crime or genres of crime, right? You got the drugs, you got the fraud, you got the money laundering, and of course, you got the sex trafficking. And now we have the impeding of the federal government. And all of these groups work together, and it's like one big one hand wash the other system, where one group funds the other group and the other group supplies the other group and so on and so forth. And they kind of feed off each other. And when I show you guys the maps, this will become more apparent to you and you'll get a better picture of what I'm saying. All these areas overlap. Now, in order to prop up their system, they rely on the ignorance of the people. And I hate to say it, but there are very few groups of people more ignorant than religious zealots who happen to be dedicated members of these sellout coon-ass black churches. Faith leaders speak out against property taxes. Now, these faith leaders are in Chicago, and they're speaking out against the hike in the property taxes, which Brandon Johnson implemented in order to pay for the illegal aliens. Now all the church leaders are mad, right? But look at this stupid shit. Black faith leaders in Chicago are protesting President Trump at Trump Tower over a new 100% property tax increase for 2026 that was passed by Democrats in Cook County. These people are allowed to vote. Yes, they're allowed to vote because the system requires their ignorance in order to perpetuate itself, because out of their ignorance, they perpetuate the system. So they're trying to rile people up against Trump over some policies that the very same Democrats that they voted for passed. So they voted for the Democrats that passed these crappy policies, and now they're mad at Trump about it when Trump literally had nothing to do with it. In fact, they would have been better off if they voted for whatever candidates Trump endorsed. They wouldn't have this problem. They wouldn't have the illegal aliens, thus they wouldn't have the tax hikes. But, at first glance, you want to say, well, damn, these people must be slow. But it ain't that. They're evil. They're wicked. That's what it is. They know full well that Trump is not the reason for these property tax increases. They know that. But they also know that their followers don't know that and are ignorant to that. So they're taking advantage of the ignorance of their followers to try to push the Trump bad narrative based off some shit that their own politicians that they voted for are doing, because they know that the midterms is coming up. And if they can poison as many people's minds against Donald Trump as they can, that means candidates that Donald Trump endorses for Congress during the midterms this year, well, they're not going to get the votes of these people because these people hate Trump, and anything that Trump touches is, in their minds is shit. So even if they have to get up here and openly lie and pretend as if Trump is responsible for what their own Democrats have done, they will do that. And these are supposed to be men of God, mind you. These are supposed to be these are your holy men. And then you wonder why certain communities in this country just can't seem to get out of this rut that they've been in for the last God knows how many years. But when you got coons and sellouts like this as your leaders, well, they're misleading you. And this man and these so-called faith leaders are literally misleading the people. Like literally, because they're blaming Trump for what their Democrats did. Like that is misleading. They are liars. They are false prophets. And when the book of Revelations talks about the great falling away in the last days, these guys are going to be the cause of it. These guys right here are going to be the cause of the great falling away, because nobody with any sense of integrity and less ignorant than them or than their followers is going to listen to these people or take them seriously once they see how stupid they are. It's almost like the anti-ICE crowd in the conscious community claiming that Trump created ICE, when that's false. And if you say that and you hang your hat on that, all you're doing is demonstrating that you don't know enough about this situation to even comment on it, because you don't even know that ICE was started in 2002 by George W. Bush. It wasn't Trump's creation, and they were very active under Obama. These people they're evil, they're wicked, they lie, they're satanic. Remember how is it, right? Ask yourself this. How is it that church leaders could actually join in the Trump derangement syndrome crowd when back in 2016, right after Trump won the election, all the Satanists across America and the witches all launched this big campaign to do rituals to put curses on President Trump, satanic rituals to put curses on President Trump and anybody who supports him. You guys remember that shit? Do y'all remember that? Put a 1 in the chat if you remember that. All the witches getting together to curse Donald Trump. You remember that? T. Wriggles doesn't remember. T. Wriggles, you can go Google it, bro. Matter of fact, I Googled it for you. I'll just read it. I'll read what the AI said. I'll tell you exactly what I Googled, and I'll read to you what it said. Where is it? Okay. I typed into Google, witches cast curses on Trump 2016, right? And it says, following Donald Trump's election in 2016, thousands of witches and practitioners, that will be your Satanists, began a binding ritual known as the hashtag Binding Trump movement on Twitter. Starting in early 2017, these monthly online and in-person rituals aimed to prevent him from causing harm rather than inflicting direct damage. The movement was a response to feelings of helplessness, with participants using magic as a form of political resistance. So the Satanists and the witches literally got together to do rituals against Trump. And here you have so-called church leaders aligning themselves with these Satanists and these witches against Trump. Something's wrong here. Somebody's lying. Because how is it possible that the Satanists and the church leaders all share the same ideology? That wouldn't be possible. Doesn't the Bible say, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, now nor standeth in the way of sinners? But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Ain't that what the Bible says? So why are these church leaders standing in the way of sinners and sitting in the seat of the scornful? Why are these church leaders aligning themselves with Satanists? Why are there so many so-called Christians out there in these churches joining in the anti-Trump movement, when the anti-Trump movement is a satanic movement based on lies? Literally based on lies. Why? Because they're under a satanic spell, and those churches where they go to worship their God, it ain't the same God that we pray to. It ain't the same Most High that we pay homage to. It's the false God that disguises himself as an angel of light. That's who they're praying to. That's their God. This is why a lot of times in conservative circles, you'll hear people ask, how can you call yourself a Christian and align with the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party, every ideology of theirs is anti-Christian? Because they're under a satanic spell. And that's that binding spell that they cast on Trump. I think that spell actually affected a lot of people because it was right around 2015, 2016, 2017 when we saw this big 180 from the media turning against Trump, and all these people that either didn't care about Donald Trump in the past or actually liked Donald Trump in the past, they all started hating him all of a sudden. I believe that spell worked, but it worked more on the people than on Trump. And they're under that same spell to this day. And it's an evil, wicked, satanic spell. That's why they're able to turn a blind eye to the pedophilia in the Democratic Party. And the ones that are forced to admit that there's pedophilia, they're trying to put Trump in it. So they can't even admit that, you know what? It's Bill Clinton all over the Epstein files, not Trump. They can't even admit that. Because they're so deeply under this spell that they've basically they've sold their souls, they've sold their integrity, they've sold their morality, and they've chosen to turn a blind eye to the blatant, open, flagrant wickedness of the Democratic Party just for the sake of hating Donald Trump. If that ain't witchcraft, I don't know what is. Look at this shit. Tell me this ain't straight evil. Meet Eric Martindale, a registered Florida nurse. He says he won't give anesthesia for Republicans undergoing surgery and believes that's his right and is ethical. He needs to be fired and stripped of his license immediately. And this is why those liberal Satanists had to infiltrate the universities, because guess where these people come from? They're produced by the universities. So if they can brainwash entire graduating classes out of these universities and put them under this libtard, leftard spell, they will have people in effective positions where they can carry out the mission because they've qualified for that position, and now they can use that position to help push the agenda. And it was evil, wicked sons of bitches like this guy who were engaging in the mass murder during COVID and lying about people died from COVID when they were the ones putting the patients on ventilators who didn't need ventilators and blowing up their lungs and causing them to suffocate to death. And then coming out of the emergency room and out of the hospitals and acting like they're some kind of hero because they worked with COVID patients. Like, you ain't no hero, you're a murderer. You was in there murdering people. But these are the types of people that the universities produce, and these are the people who, in a lot of cases, hold our lives in their hands. And this is fucking scary. And this was his post right here. You blow it up. He says, "I will not perform anesthesia for any surgeries or procedures for MAGA. It is my right. It is my ethical oath. And I stand behind my education. I own all of my businesses and I can refuse anyone." So he's openly declaring that he's going to engage in political discrimination. Now, here's the thing. If somebody comes in for a medical treatment, how would you even know what their political ideology is? But you got to beware of these people, because you see, this is how you know when you're dealing with leftards. They always find a way to bring up the politics. They always find a way to bring up the politics because they want to gauge where you stand so then they can determine how they treat you moving forward. So when you're dealing with people, you keep your politics to yourself when you're dealing with certain situations that don't require you to have political discussions. This is why most businesses don't allow you to discuss religion or politics while on the clock. And it's even more imperative for us conservatives to kind of treat it like Fight Club, because these people are evil and they have evil and hatred in their hearts. and they will do you harm if given the chance to. These are dangerously radicalized individuals who've never had any semblance of power in their real lives, and buying into this narrative and falling for this spell, it gives them a sense and a feeling of power. So they grasp onto it and they abuse it. And that makes them dangerous people. The nurse on the left was murdered by an illegal. The nurse on the right lost his life because he attacked ICE agents trying to arrest a violent criminal illegal immigrant and resisted arrest while carrying a loaded gun. Guess which nurse the radical left calls a hero? Yeah, the Cuck, Sergeant Cuxfeld right here. That's who the hero is, and they just act like these people that get murdered by the illegals don't even exist. And it's sick. It's really sick. And everybody that feels bad for this guy, don't. Do yourself a favor. Don't. He brought it on himself. And after he got killed, because he was one of them gay-ass trans gentlemen, too, that would dress up like a bitch on the weekends, right? So after he gets killed, Antifa decides to take to the streets and start fighting ICE, right? But check this out. This is the Antifa leader. Another one of these weirdo perverts. So all you anti-ICE people, just remember, these are your thought leaders. This is who you're siding with. Just remember that. Just always picture this guy in your mind whenever you decide to say, fuck ICE, and take to the internet or take to the streets. Just remember, you're following the lead of these people. This is the leader of Antifa in Minnesota who called to take up arms against ICE. Anyone have a message for him? Like, these dudes are literal straight bitch. And that's who you're taking your marching orders from. That's who you following. That's who you're following. Those are your thought leaders. All you anti-fuck Trump people and all that shit. Fuck MAGA and all that, and fuck ICE and all. That's who your leader is. The referee of teabagging. Yeah. And you see, they want to brainwash the young people because if they can get, because remember, they already got a whole generation of 20-somethings that literally grew up in the era of Trump bad. These 20-something-year-old college students, they came into teenage years around the time Trump came into office in 2016. This has been 10 years in the making. And 10 years is enough time for a generation of children to become a generation of adults. And they've been brainwashing the school children since back then. And now we have a generation of adults who are evil to the core, perverted to the core, and will stop at nothing to see Donald Trump destroyed, which means see the system be propped up, see the extortion and the fraud continue, see the overrunning by illegal aliens continue, the foreign infiltration continue, etc., etc. This is out of Georgia. This Georgia high school that held a mass anti-ICE walkout has been exposed for only having a 6% math proficiency rate and a 16% reading proficiency rate. You see, they literally dumb the kids down so they can fall for the brainwashing. That's what we're witnessing here. We're witnessing American children being dumbed down by the public education system and used as cannon fodder for their Cloward and Piven strategy to protect the illegal invaders. And what's sad is a lot of these kids, their parents come from the fuck Trump era. So their parents are okay with their kids not being able to read or do math, but they hate ICE. They're cool with that because the parents are dumb too. And since COVID, a lot of people have gotten dumber. A lot dumber. Guys, make sure y'all hit that like button. We got 62 watching on YouTube and 45 likes. Make sure y'all hit that like button. And this is sad, because how do you stop this? How do you stop this? How do you change this? Because these kids, remember, the average high school graduate is between the ages of 17 and 18. You can vote in America at age 18. So if they spend all 4 years of high school being propagandized and brainwashed, when they turn 18 and they're ready to go vote, guess who they're voting for? The foreign infiltrators, because that's who they were brainwashed into believing are the good guys. That's who they were told really have America's best interest at heart. And the people who actually do have America's best interest at heart get painted in a bad light. We get called racist and coons and sellouts, and we get shadow banned, and we get called bad and immoral and hateful and bigoted and every name in the book you could think of. And with this generation of brainwashed adults, young adults we have running around here, now they're getting organized and they're creating networks of quote unquote resistance, which is nothing more than an insurgency. FBI says it has identified financial backers behind Minneapolis protests. Not organic, not random. Federal investigators say they've tracked the money behind the unrest. Yeah, Kash Patel saying that now, but they knew that already. They knew it already. They just had to let the riots go on and let some of that money flow so they can follow where it's going to ensure that they have the right people in the crosshairs. And now they do. And what we're going to see happen now that Trump has leaned on the governor and got him to capitulate is these riots and these protests, they're going to die down very quickly. Very, very quickly. And their attempts to get black people in the street, it's not going to work. This man is going viral for calling out Tim Walz and Jacob Frey for being willing to sacrifice the lives of their constituents to protect Somali fraud in their state, saying prison time isn't enough for attempting to incite civil war to protect fraud. And there's a lot of brothers speaking out against this shit now because they're starting to see the writing on the wall. They're starting to see these cucky little bitch-made white liberals, these bitch-made white boys leading the charge, and the brothers are like, yeah, we don't identify with you. We're not fighting for illegals. No. And black folks are starting to walk away from the anti-ICE movement, and a lot of them never joined it in the first place because they were smart enough to understand foreigner versus American. And thanks to the FBA movement, and I got to give it to the FBA movement for getting black Americans to actually appreciate their Americanism, because now we're dealing with a situation where it's nationalism versus internationalism. And most Americans are choosing nationalism because this internationalism thing, it ain't working. It's boosting up the crime rate. It's inviting all types of problems from these third world shitholes that we don't need. It's overwhelming the system. It's creating excuses for these Democrats to increase our taxes so we could pay for these useless motherfuckers. And them being here is of no benefit to the American people whatsoever. But who they do benefit are the Democrats, because if they get them here and they stay here long enough and they have their anchor baby kids and their anchor baby kids become citizens, guess what? The parents that are illegals can't vote, but the anchor baby kids can. And this is what Trump's 14th Amendment fight is all about, is preventing that. Jason M. Schmidt says, bottom line, internationalism is zesty. Yeah, it's zesty. Yeah, we're not with the Zest Fest. Sorry, we're just not. Now, Christy Noam says, concealed carry without ID is illegal in Minnesota. Now, this goes to all the people that were screaming that Alex Preddy was legally carrying a firearm. He was a legal gun owner, this and that. Well, it turns out that He didn't have ID on him. And I said this in the last show. If you're carrying a firearm and it's a legal firearm, you're also required to carry your identification and your concealed carry license in order to present it to law enforcement if ever you were to encounter and make contact with law enforcement. You also have an obligation to report, which means when you make contact with law enforcement and you're being detained by law enforcement, lawfully detained, you have to disclose that you're in possession of a firearm if you're a legal gun owner. So failure to do those things, carry identification and disclose that you're carrying a firearm upon contact with law enforcement, failure to do those things actually, in the legal sense, amount to you illegally carrying that firearm, and you can be arrested and have your firearm confiscated. And it's happened a lot of times. So all the claims that this guy was legally carrying his firearm, well, his carrying of the firearm legally became invalidated, one, once it was discovered that he wasn't carrying identification, and two, once he violated the law by impeding the federal officers. So all that legal gun owner shit goes out the window. I mean, if you're a legal gun owner and you take your legally owned gun and blow your neighbor's head off out of malice and spite, you're now a murderer. You're no longer a legal gun owner. You just committed a crime. Now, what Alex Pretty did was not as dramatic or as extreme as that, but it still amounted to a violation of federal law. And he was in violation of state law by not carrying ID. Now, part of the problem, though, is that the local police in Minneapolis had been ordered to stand down by the cuckolded police chief and were not assisting ICE agents. But this is why we're not seeing that drama in other places, because you got the local police actively involved in these ICE operations, and any American citizens that get in the way of these ICE operations are being arrested and apprehended by the local police, so ICE can then focus on their foreign national targets. But it's becoming more and more difficult in Minneapolis because you have the local police not assisting. So ICE is having to do both things, which is keep the crowds and the impediments at bay, while at the same time targeting their foreign national targets. Cooperation crisis. Former ICE agent Tim Miller warns that local law enforcement refusing to work with federal agents is putting public safety at risk in Minnesota. As Minnesota faces weeks of unrest following 2 fatal shootings. The scary part is that the police aren't with them, Miller said. Without the police involved locally, it's a formula for disaster. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing play out. And again, it's deliberate. Because these local leaders, especially Jacob Frey, he knows that if the local police don't assist ICE, shit's going to get ugly. And they want things to get ugly because they want more people to get hurt. Because the more people that get hurt is the more they can blame it on, they can blame ICE and blame Trump. Now, hang on a second. Where are we? Okay. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Donald Trump's conversation with Tim Walz, and this is what Donald Trump had to say about that conversation. Governor Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call. We actually seemed to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him, and that what we are looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that, and I will be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was going to Minnesota, and so am I. We have had such tremendous success in Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every other place that we have touched. And even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. President Donald J. Trump. So it seems like Trump's going easy on Tim Walz, but I think it's the pressure of the threats of the military coming in that got him to straighten up and why Trump was able to lean on him like that. Border czar Tom Homan will be managing ICE operations directly on the ground in Minnesota and reporting directly to President Trump. Homan will also coordinate the fraud investigation, per Carolyn Leavitt. Homan is a national treasure. Now, here's the thing. When you have a presidential cabinet member handling on-the-ground operations and reporting from the ground directly to the president, that is military structure where the president is acting as commander-in-chief. Tom Homan being the border czar, he's over ICE and border patrol. And ICE and border patrol, because they deal with foreign nationals, they're not exactly American or federal law enforcement like the FBI is, but they're more like paramilitary federal law enforcement. In other words, they're like federal troops. That will be the proper term. And federal troops, because not only do they deal with American citizens to a degree, but they also, their main focus is the apprehension and removal of foreign nationals who are not entitled to constitutional protections. And when you're dealing with foreign nationals that are not entitled to constitutional protections, you have to deal with them under military law. So you need a military structure, and in the military structure, the commander-in-chief is at the top of the chain of command. Thus, all reporting goes directly to the commander-in-chief. So now we have the National Guard deployed in Minnesota, and we have a military-style chain of command established in Minnesota with the capitulation of the governor. Oh, yes, those midnight raids from Spec Ops are still coming because remember, special operations units deployed with the National Guard too. Anti-ICE protesters surround Tim Walz's office after he signaled openness to President Trump and Tom Homan. So this is the fun part, right? He was talking all that shit and hyping up the crowds and all that, and everybody was, yeah, he's our hero, fight ICE. Now he's capitulating. And what's happening now is those same violent mobs that he was riling up against ICE, they're now starting to turn on him. So Trump got him to commit political suicide, basically. But this is what's wrong with Minnesota. There is a serious mental health crisis in Minnesota that's not being addressed, and these crazy people are making their way into dangerously high positions. Minnesota transgender state rep Lee Fink calls on anti-ICE protesters to storm more churches. This is a crazy man. This is a man that is insane, that thinks he's a woman. And he was elected to be a state representative in Minnesota. Something is wrong. There's something in the water in Minnesota. Because for a group of voters to get together and vote for a man that thinks he's a woman, there's something in the water in Minnesota. And look at this cuck sitting next to him. It's like these people just exude. The ones that exude crazy, you can just look at them and tell they're crazy. And the ones that are just too weak to call out the crazy, you can look at them and like you can hear the weakness just oozing out of their pasty pores. You know, it sounds like I don't even know. Sounds disgusting. People are fucking crazy. But the craziness is coming to an end. Minnesota State Patrol is now defending federal agents in arresting rioters after President Trump's call with Governor Tim Walz. Now, here's the thing, though. You still got Keith Ellison as the attorney general, and he's just going to let these people right back out of jail. But what the effect that it's having, though, is these mobs are not so emboldened anymore because ICE got backup now. And wherever these large crowds form, you have the state police riot squads popping out on them and moving them out of the streets, arresting the ones that are impeding, and doing what they should have been doing from the beginning. Yeah, Chaz, ICE will monitor the winter games in Italy. I'm getting to that because they're also going to be at the Super Bowl, and I'll tell you why. But Minnesota State Police start testing LRAD on protesters, long-range acoustic device. So it ain't the military with the discombobulator, because the police have been using LRADs for a very long time now, since the early 2000s, I want to say, since like the beginning of the Obama era, they've been using LRAD. So this is nothing new, but it is an effective non-lethal weapon that doesn't require munitions or chemicals like tear gas canisters, pepper balls, and shit like that. So it's less lethal, it's less damaging, but it's just as effective. So you actually got the state police, who were ordered to stand down by the governor, now given the green light to go do their job. And the sad thing about it is, these cops sitting back watching all this happen wanted to get out there and do something about it, but they were under orders, so they couldn't. But Trump got the leash taken off of them, and now they're out busting heads and doing what they're supposed to do. So here are the terms that Trump laid out for Tim Walz. That is why I am hereby calling on Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and every Democrat governor and mayor in the United States of America to formally cooperate with the Trump administration to enforce our national laws rather than resist and stoke the flames of division, chaos, and violence. So this ain't just to Tim Walz. This is to all the Democrats that are trying to encourage these anti-ICE riots. Governor Walz and Mayor Frey should turn over all criminal illegal aliens that are currently incarcerated in their state prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with all illegal criminals with an active warrant or known criminal history for immediate deportation. State and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens arrested by local police. Local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crimes. Democrat politicians must partner with the federal government to protect American citizens in the rapid removal of all criminal illegal aliens in our country. Some Democrats in places like Memphis, Tennessee, or Washington, D.C. have done so, resulting in safer streets for all. In addition, I am hereby calling on the United States Congress to immediately pass legislation to end sanctuary cities, which is the root cause of all these problems. American cities should be safe sanctuaries for law-abiding American citizens only, not illegal alien criminals who broke our nation's laws. All of these requests are rooted in common sense and will provide the best possible circumstances to make America great again. The Trump administration is standing by and waiting for any Democrat to do the right thing and work with us on these important matters of making America safe. It is like it is in all sections of our country, where we are together with local leadership participating and involved. President Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So he laid out the terms, and Tim Walz has capitulated. But there's still these networks that are continuing to operate, and they're continuing with their resistance. FBI Director Kash Patel says the Bureau is reviewing signal chats tied to potential violence in Minneapolis, stressing investigations target lawbreakers, not peaceful speech or lawful protest. The Signal Chat Group is information we collect from the public because we repeatedly request that the public provide us with any information they have. On this type of specific investigation, what you do, generally speaking, is send out subpoenas, collect data, put people before grand juries, and find out who broke the law and if anyone incited violence. Remember, that's the key here. We are not going after people or infringing on their freedom of speech to peacefully protest, and we are definitely not going after people for their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Only if you incite violence and or threaten to do harm to law enforcement officials or break the law in any other way does it become an investigatory matter. So this signal chat is something that we, the FBI, are looking at and spearheading. Now, this pertains to the Alex Preddy situation, and it says just a week before his fatal fight with Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis, Alex Preddy had another tussle with federal agents, causing him to break a rib. The dude was a full-on militant impeding ICE operations, not a protester. Is that so? Well, in case you're wondering what exactly they're referring to, let's take the sound off or turn the sound on. I'll show you what they're referring to in terms of Alex Preddy, and this might blow your mind. Why the hell are we stuck on this chick? There we go. So this is Alex Preddy, and it says BBC releases new video showing man believed to be Alex Preddy spitting at federal agents and kicking out taillight on their vehicle 1 week before his death. Check it out.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal
and he's literally wearing the same clothes.
Immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36th and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m.
Look at him. Tough guy. Real tough guy.
We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight. An agent then got out of the vehicle, grabbed him, and pushed him to the
Watch him try to run like a coward.
Ground.
Come here. He hit him with the come here.
During the altercation, agents fired tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd. They continued to hold the man down before they retreat, and he walks away.
I think ICE fucked up right here, though. They should have arrested him and took him into custody and handed him over to the FBI. But you see, this would have been the state police's job. ICE should have been backed up by the state police, because if the state police were there to keep people like Alex Preddy at bay, he would have never gotten close enough to even kick out the taillight on the vehicle. But they let him go. They shouldn't have let him go. If they would have arrested him and had him charged this time around, he probably would have been alive today, to tell you the truth. And that's the truth.
The man in our footage is wearing a similar outfit to what Preddy was wearing on the day he was killed. What appears to be a gun is also visible above his waistband.
Yep, you can see the pistol. There goes the pistol. I don't know if you guys can see that shit. Cameraman sucks. Yep, there it is. That's the gun right there.
Here, he continues to stand at the scene.
So they let him get away with the violence one time, and then the second time he tried that shit again and got Swiss cheesed.
That claim has been contradicted by analysis of bystander videos from multiple news investigations, which concluded that Preddy was holding a phone, not a gun, when he was pinned to the street.
Huh. So the dude was a whole
This is a moment
he was a whole gangster.
the news movement filmed on January 3rd.
That's why they shot him, because they knew who he was. They had already had a run-in with him, and he was probably on social media talking cash shit, bragging about having his gun and all that shit. So when he ran up on him the second time, they wasn't playing with his ass.
13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January.
Yep. That's your boy. That's your boy. That's Alex Preddy. That's your innocent, your innocent VA nurse that was all about helping people and dressing like a bitch and fucking men on the weekends. That's him. Real tough guy. And it's funny because they knew about this run-in that he had with ICE the moment he got shot that day, but they never broadcasted it. They never showed us that footage. Why? Because it would have painted a whole different picture than the one they were trying to paint. They were trying to paint him out to be some innocent protester that was just there protesting, and the evil ICE just gunned him down for having a gun on him. No. This guy was an active rioter, agitator, and he was armed, and his job was to stir up trouble with ICE, and that's exactly what he was out there doing. And, well, he got what he was looking for. Now, hang on a second. Let me check something really quick. Hey, guys, don't forget to hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal, hit the Venmo, and support the show. Shout out to my sister Angela with the $5 challenge on the Cash App. Oh, shit. We got a $5 challenge going. Who's going to take the challenge? We got 70 people in the house, man. If 20 people take that challenge, we can hit $100 tonight, man. Let's see if we can do it. Can we do it? Y'all going to help your boy out? Y'all going to show me some love? I don't know. Alex Preddy was a member of the Kingsfield Signal Ice Watch group. Jean Massey, who coordinates rapid response for these networks, confirmed Preddy's involvement. She describes her role as patrolling neighborhoods when ICE is spotted, alerting residents, and witnessing what she calls the horror of enforcement operations. After Preddy was shot, Massey rushed to the scene along with many other Minneapolis residents. She claims she watched ICE officers charge into the crowd and deployed tear gas against people who had gathered there. Well, boo fucking who? Mind your damn business, stay out of the street, and stay out of ICE's way, and you wouldn't have that problem. Boo fucking who? Now, to the brother that said ICE is going to be covering the winter games in Italy, Chazak Yashar. They're also going to be covering the Super Bowl. And the reason why they're going to be covering the Super Bowl is because of the child trafficking. A little known fact is that at these major sports events like the Super Bowl, at major baseball games, basketball games, the NBA finals, even at the World Cup, at these major sporting events is where traffickers would bring their child victims, because there's going to be plenty of families and parents with kids. So the traffickers would bring their child victims and meet up with buyers and do the exchanges at these sporting events. So the kids would come in with one group of adults or one adult and leave with another. That's how they would traffic the children. And in the melee, in the mix, in the crowds, nobody notices a thing. So ICE now is going to be at the Italian games in Italy looking for American children being trafficked. And they're also going to be at the Super Bowl looking for foreign national children that are being trafficked. That's what they're there for now. It was the FBI doing it before, but because the FBI was so corrupt, many of them were actually involved in the child trafficking, so it was ineffective. But again, now that we have new administration, now we have a new administration and we have new people running these agencies, and they've been purging these agencies of the perceived bad actors. Now these operations can actually yield some real results. So what I expect to hear about, if there will be any reporting, is missing children being found and being recovered at these sporting events. Because remember, they're getting intel from the drug boats that the drug boat crews that they nabbed in the Caribbean. That's leading them to drug rings here in the United States. They're kicking in their doors and busting those guys, getting intel from those guys. And remember, these criminal networks, they all work together. So you follow the drugs, you find the drug money. Not only do you find the drug money, but you find all the other vices that the drug money pays for, like the sexual perversion and these perverts' proclivity for children. And the thing about the signal chat network for the Ice Watch thing, that is literally the exact same way that these pedophile networks collaborate and communicate with one another. You remember hearing about these busts where they'll bust people with child porn videos, and they'll be part of one of the charges would be distribution of that material, like that gay couple in Georgia that were sexually abusing their adopted sons that were like 6 and 7 years old, like mad young, and they made millions of dollars selling the videos. How do you think they were meeting other pedophiles that were willing to buy these videos? In these chat groups. So once Homeland Security was able to infiltrate these chat groups, now they can set up sting operations like fake buys and transfers of these kids, where it'll be an undercover agent dealing with the person that's trafficking the kids. Thus, at the exchange, that person gets taken into custody. So be on the lookout for stories like that, because you're probably going to hear some, and you're probably not going to hear about the Italy operations except in Italian and European newspapers. But I'll try my best to find anything pertaining to those ops when the time comes. But this, again, the significance of learning about the Ice Watch Signal chat group, it mirrors the structure, the way it's structured and the way they communicate mirrors the exact same way that the child traffickers and the pedophiles operate. And in a lot of cases, the people involved in these Ice Watch groups tend to be a lot of the same people involved in these pedophile rings. This is why almost all the men are gay and cucky and dressed like women, and all the women are just insane radical leftist feminists. These are the people that tend to be more involved in the child trafficking. Remember, Renee Good, she was using her own damn kids as a fucking ashtray, putting cigarettes out on them. So imagine, as a mother, you could be that fucking evil. You don't think she'll be evil enough to sell the kid for a couple of dollars? I think so. And you'd be a fool to doubt it. It's more likely than not. Remember, she's a stone cold child abuser, her and her gay ass wife. So you got child abusers in the mix, in the circle. So is my theory so far off the mark? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So Cam Higbee, Minneapolis Signal infiltrated. Minneapolis signal infiltrated. I have infiltrated organizational signal groups all around Minneapolis with the sole intention of tracking down federal agents and impeding, assaulting, and obstructing them. Buckle up, all will be revealed. Each area of the city has a signal or several signals. Let's start with a screen recording of all members of the Southside group to start. I don't think I have that screen recording, but it says, I've been undercover inside the groups for days. You'll notice emojis next to people's names. Here's a key for what these emojis mean. The highlighted positions are the most crucial. Most are self-explanatory. Mobile patrols spend their entire quote-unquote shift searching for suspicious vehicles. When they find one, they send it to the group so that plate checkers can compare with their database and see if it's a known federal vehicle or if the patrol can make the confirmation so that the database can be updated. Dispatch runs a maxed out call all day telling protesters where ICE has been spotted and how they can be best impeded. Okay, so here's some of the emojis. High volume chat group, all leads start here and get posted in FTP chat when it's confirmed ICE activity. While on a shift, please put emoji in front of your signal name so we know your role and location. So the car is mobile patrol, the car with the smoke behind it. The car by the stop sign is stationary patrol. The runner is a foot patrol. The phone is dispatch. I don't know what this is here. Hyper local group messenger, school transport safety spotters, license plate checkers is the plate and the knife and the fork. The medic, of course, is the medical symbol, and aftercare provider is the heart wrapped in bandages. So they literally have a whole system of emojis to describe each one of their roles and each one of their positions. What other group of people have we seen use emojis as code? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the pedos, right? With the pizza emojis. Yeah. It's literally the same playbook, different application. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these people were caught being involved in a pedophile ring. Hell, so many of them have already. Mike Benz says it's every bit as paramilitary organized as you suspected it was. Each chat for a specific part of each city has smaller districts broken up within it called patrol zones, which guide ICE chasers on where they should be position or where they should be or their position. So these are their ICE zones right here. Sharing our Bloomington patrol zones map, which is loosely based on city council districts. You see? So they literally know and understand the city council districts and created their maps, and these people are well organized. And when you see it broadcast in the mainstream media, they try to play it off and portray it as if it's like grassroots. And these are just normal people that are fed up with ICE and want to protect immigrants and all that shit. Well, no, this is a highly coordinated, well organized, and deliberate. What up, D. Allen? And deliberate operation. This is conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. And all of these conspirators are being investigated, and they're all going to go to jail eventually. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them are being arrested right now. Minnesota Signal Group leader identified as Amanda Kohler, a protest organizer and campaign strategist for Tim Walz. So one of Tim Walz's people is an organizer of this paramilitary group, and that's her. And look at this cat lady. How about it? Fucking cat lady. A goddamn cat lady. You got to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. There she is again with Tim Walz. So, like I said, this is well coordinated and it's being organized. And she's using her same organizational skills that she used for Tim Walz's campaign to organize this anti-ICE campaign. And I'm pretty certain that a large percentage of her funding is coming from Tim Walz by way of the Somali fraud. Minnesota State Senate candidate Anita Smithson identified as dispatcher in anti-ICE signal group. So there's members of government and potential future members of government involved in this conspired, this orchestrated insurgency. Byron Donalds says anti-ICE extremists in Minnesota are operating a highly coordinated, well-funded network with localized signal groups. The groups are designed to track down, impede, sabotage, and attack federal immigration agents. This isn't organic, and Minnesota leaders incite them further. These are the facts. And you see Byron Donalds getting on the news and saying it. Of course, the talking heads on the fake news are going to say, it's conspiracy theory. You're just being paranoid. This is grassroots. These people are organizing and they're going against the feds because that's how they really feel and this and that. And they're going to try to discredit Byron Donalds. But I just went through the evidence and showed you guys the actual signal chat, the emoji list of the emoji code that they use, and the people involved in running the whole thing. But you see, the fake news is not going to go that deep into it because they don't want to reveal these facts to the public, because they would desperately need the public to believe that what Byron Donalds is saying is just conspiracy theory, nothing to see here. And that's the way they've been able to cover up all this this mass criminality, by pretending as if it doesn't exist and that the people that are exposing it are liars, have no credibility, and are just making it up and pulling it out their ass. When in reality, the man's telling the truth. But this is how they've been able to discredit the truth for so long and keep the spell going, right? By omitting certain important facts. Like there's literally names and faces to the signal chat. So it's not made up. They're really out here organizing like that and doing this shit. They're actually fighting a civil war to an extent, because they're well funded, they're well organized, they have governance, and they're constantly, and their entire, the purpose for their entire existence is to impede the federal government and protect illegal aliens, criminal illegal aliens. Of course, New York City, another liberal shithole like Minneapolis, they're turning up over there too now. Target New York City now with cut off all federal funds, surge ICE for mass deportations, arrest politicians who instigate insurrection, federalize National Guard, be prepared to immediately invoke Insurrection Act, have 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum on speed dial. And this is Steve Bannon. And he's right, because Trump having the military on speed dial and his threats to invoke the Insurrection Act, coupled with his phone call leaning on Tim Walz and putting pressure on Tim Walz, he was able to gain compliance, and now he has the support of the state police in protecting these ICE agents so ICE can do their job. Tim Walz could have been doing this from the beginning, but he had to buy the fraudsters time to make their getaway. Now, J.B. Pritzker is another one of these Democratic governor nincompoops who's running the state of Illinois right into the ground, oversees one of the bloodiest cities in America, Chicago, and gets on TV and acts like he cares about people of color, while the highest murder rate in his state is amongst people of color. How about that shit? Wow, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker just sent a massive warning to Gregory Bovino, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, and every single ICE officer. Trump will be gone eventually, and in January 2029, accountability is coming. Accountability for what, J.B. Pritzker? J.B. Shitsker? Accountability for what? Exactly. Because you'll be gone eventually too. And that's what he fails to realize, because he thinks that the election fraud that got him into office in the first place is going to be allowed to continue and he'll be able to stay in office. Au contraire, my friend. So you keep talking that tough shit. And I love how they get on TV and talk that tough shit too. That's pretty bold. Now, not only is Trump going after the criminal aliens, all illegal aliens, but a part of this massive operation and why these ICE agents are dressed in military style gear and covering their faces, and I've said this to you guys before, is because they're going after sleeper cells in organized crime. Many of which many of these operatives are illegal aliens. And Iran has had a major problem with foreign infiltration by the Israeli Mossad, and it just manifested itself recently in the mass killings of protesters in Iran. They started the riots, started the protests, and then activated the sleeper cells to start killing the protesters. And the Iranian government had to respond with their military to kill the terrorists that were killing the protesters. After all the protesters were killed and the sleeper cells were mopped up by the Iranian security forces, the fake news over here was then reporting that the Iranian government were the ones killing the protesters, which was not the case. And I've spoken at length about this in a previous stream about how these Democrats, they want more people out in the streets protesting ICE, especially black people, so they can activate the sleeper cells and create mass casualty events from city to city. That's why it's imperative, and it's life or death, that black Americans ignore that call and not heed that call from these cuckolded, faggoty white liberals to go out there and put their lives on the line and allow them to play Operation Hide Behind the Darky, because that's essentially what they're trying to do. They're trying to put the black people on the front line so the sleeper cells can kill them and they can blame ICE and blame the Trump administration. This is why they keep putting the batteries and protesters back so they can go out, or these agitators backs, so they can go out and get themselves waxed by ICE, so they can begin to create the image in Americans' minds that ICE is this paramilitary murderous group that Trump sent out on the street to kill all the brown people. And then when they start seeing images of black people getting sniped and mowed down in the streets, everybody's going to be in their emotions and they're going to get all mad. And once the fake news says ICE did it, everybody's going to turn on ICE and turn on the Trump administration, and the illegal aliens get a free ride and they get to get away with all their shit. Now, check this out. New York Post reports Revolutionary Guard member, ex-Iranian army sniper, and terror suspect arrested in sweep of Iranian illegal immigrants or illegal migrants in the U.S. And this was back in June. And all throughout the summer, ICE across the country had been arresting Iranian illegals. And they came across the border with the migrant caravans. And these Iranians these men that happen to be Iranian nationals, and I believe that's a woman there, they are actually Israeli Mossad agents. Yes, the Israeli Mossad has Iranian nationals that work for them. Yes, they do. And these Israeli Mossad agents, because they're Iranian nationals, they were to lead the sleeper cells to carry out these mass casualty events and be, once they get caught and get blamed for it, the fake news will report that it's Iran that's doing it. Remember Netanyahu kept saying if the U.S. intervenes in their genocide in Gaza, Iran is going to attack America. Remember that shit? Remember when Netanyahu was saying that shit? This is who he was referring to. These Iranian nationals that are on his fucking payroll, whose job it is to murder Americans when the order was given. So it's a very, very, very complex game, but once you understand it, you understand it. Iranian nationals that work for Israel. Israel was using Iranian nationals to commit the mass murders here in America, just like they used Iranian nationals to commit the mass murders in Iran. And the reason why they wanted to use Iranian nationals was because they want to start a war between the U.S. and Iran, because Iran poses the biggest threat to Israel, and Iran is ready to level Israel. And as soon as they get the green light from Russia, it's a wrap for Israel. It's over for Israel. ICE arrests 100+ Iranian nationals across U.S. amid sleeper cell concerns. And again, this was back in June. And have I not been telling you guys this all year? That they're not just going after illegals, they're going after these terrorist sleeper cells. And I told you the terrorist sleeper cells are ran by the Israeli Mossad, but the manpower are Iranian nationals. That's how Israel would get away with it and blame Iran for it, by using their Iranian nationals to launch these attacks. This is why ICE is rolling around in militarized gear with long guns and shit. Because this is who they're going after. These guys and the people they recruited. Look at this. Iran has had a huge problem with Israeli spies infiltrating their country for years. When spies stop hiding, Mossad and the weaponization of protests in Iran. You see, the Mossad were the ones that stoked the protest in Iran to get the people in the streets. Once the Mossad got the people in the streets, they then activated their hit squads to kill the people in the streets. You get it? That's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to use their control of the media and their control of the politicians to get the people in the streets, to stop ICE from getting their sleeper cells. Once they get enough people in the streets, they activate the sleeper cells. And then what played out in Iran to blame Ayatollah Khomeini would play out here to blame Trump. You guys think I'm sure some of y'all thought I was making this shit up. Iranian security forces arrest Mossad agent operating among rioters. And who's to say that Alex Preddy, because he was a small hat, who's to say Alex Preddy wasn't a Mossad agent? And that's why ICE took his ass out. Who's to say? And who's to say those ICE agents are actually ICE agents and not special forces operators disguised as ICE agents? They have the ability to do that as long as the president says, yes, military guys, you can dress as civilian law enforcement and go out and do your civilian thing. As long as the president okays it, they can do whatever they want. So who's to say Alex Preddy's execution was not a death sentence because he was an Israeli Mossad agent? Because the way he was acting in that video I showed you guys a little while ago, it seems like he was inciting a riot. Check this one out. Straight out of a spy film, ex-Mossad officer explains how Israeli spies infiltrate Iran's deepest circles. Mossad's spy network in Iran is not just a mystery anymore. Former Mossad officer Oded Ilam, who served for 24 years, has revealed how Israel's intelligence agency successfully recruits spies inside Iran. In a candid interview with Bild, Ilam explains that ethnic divisions, dissatisfaction with Iran's regime, and economic struggles make many Iranians open to working with Mossad because they pay very well. The agency promises safety for informants and their families while operating carefully through a wide network. With Iran's vast unguarded borders and Mossad's calculated methods, Israel continues to gather intelligence deep inside enemy territory where trust, risk, and secrecy go hand in hand. So remember when I told you the Israeli Mossad are masters of infiltration. They've infiltrated Iran, hired a bunch of Iranian nationals as their agents, and they sent a bunch of them over here to infiltrate our country with the migrant caravans. So they are Iranian nationals, but they're working for Israel. So while you see Trump on TV, playing grab ass with Netanyahu and kissing Israel's ass, he's actually mopping up their Mossad sleeper cells, hiding out here in America, waiting to do the exact same thing they did in Iran. So he's undermining them. And this is why the Zionist controlled media won't show Trump no love, because he's undermining them. You see that? Check this out. Head of Iranian unit countering Mossad was Israeli agent, says ex-president Ahmadinejad. And it's crazy because the Iranians for years have been screaming about this Israeli Mossad infiltration in their country. And it's these Israeli Mossad agents that have been doing all this crazy shit around the world in the name of Iran to keep America and Iran at odds with each other. And this is why most Americans were unaware of the Israeli infiltration of Iran, even though the Iranians have been screaming it from Mount Ararat for God knows how long. And the head of the Iranian unit countering the Mossad. So the Iranian military unit, whose job it is to weed out these Mossad spies, the guy in charge of that unit was a Mossad spy himself. They infiltrated all the way to the top. And that's why their infiltration and their mass murder operation that just recently occurred was so successful. Because the guy in charge of wiping out these sleeper cells was one of the sleepers himself. And it's these Israeli Mossad agents that have infiltrated Iran that have been creating the tensions between America and Iran. It's been Israel the entire time. And the same Israeli Mossad agents that infiltrated Iran by way of their Iranian national cohorts are the same Israeli Mossad agents under Iranian nationalities here in America lying in wait as sleeper cells. And this is who Trump is going after. So it ain't just the fraudsters with the money. It ain't just the fraudsters with the election. It ain't just the rioters impeding ICE. And it damn sure ain't just the illegal aliens who don't have legal status. They're also going after these highly trained, highly specialized, heavily armed spies, Mossad spies with Iranian passports. That's who they're going after. Ain't that some shit? Israel secretly recruited Iranian dissidents to attack their country from within. August 7th, 2025. And this was before the mass killings. Fire and smoke rise into the sky after an Israeli attack on Sharon oil depot on June 15th in Tehran, Iran. You see? So these Israeli Mossad agents, they've been wreaking havoc and chaos in Iran this entire time. And these Mossad agents were the same ones that shot up those protests. And when Khomeini responded, this was the result. Khomeini captures 3,000 plus U.S. Mossad agents, triggering bloody Iran protests. 60,000 plus weapons seized. So if it was Khomeini's government killing the protesters, who are these 3,000 people captured, and where and how did they get these 60,000 weapons? That means what the Iranian foreign minister was saying in that video that I showed you guys was absolutely true. Israeli bullets found in the dead kids from the protests that were killed. And now we got 3,000 Mossad agents with 60,000 weapons. And you think they not packing that kind of manpower and that kind of firepower here in America? And you don't think they were going to turn up once the crowds got big enough in the streets? You out of your damn mind. You see, people only see what they show us on the surface, but they're not paying attention to what's happening beneath the surface. Because what happened in Iran is exactly what they were planning to do over here. And it was the perfect opportunity to blame President Trump for it. But thank God in heaven that the American people are a little smarter than that, especially the black people, because that's who they really wanted in the streets. Because those Middle Easterners and those Israelis, they don't really like black Americans very much. So they would have taken pleasure in gunning black folks down. And those were the people they wanted out in the streets. You see, during the 2020 Black Lives Matter riots, they had a lot of black people out in the streets, but they didn't have their sleeper cells because the sleeper cells didn't make it into the country and arm up until the Biden administration came around, and they were well funded and they were let into the country through the open borders. So the people kind of got lucky in 2020 that Trump didn't allow the border to be fully open like Biden. And for the border hoppers that did get across, they weren't being as well funded as they were funded under the Biden administration. And when you look up the ICE raids and the sleeper cells and the weapon seizures, the numbers are kind of similar. Tens of thousands of weapons, thousands of operatives being arrested. Because you see, in Iran, all they got to deal with is the Israeli Mossad infiltrating their country. Here in America, we got the Israeli Mossad, we got the Mexican drug cartels, we got the South American cartels like Tren de Aragua, and then we got the idiot liberals. So we got three groups of infiltrators to deal with here in America. Oh, and they're getting dealt with. Jaden Stewart says, why don't they like us? We ain't do shit to them. They just don't like dark skin. They just don't like people of darker skin. Remember, the sub-Saharan Africans that are still being enslaved and sold into slavery in North America, it's them Arabs that's selling them. It's them Arabs that's buying them and enslaving them. And they don't see us as any different from them. And they don't like black people because they think black people are stupid. And in a way, they're not wrong for thinking that, because when you look at how most Black Americans vote, they vote against their own best interest. So they see us as useful idiots and pawns. And they dehumanize us and use us to push their agenda while giving us nothing in return. We're just useful idiots to them. And they know that if the government kills a Black man in America, that's cause to turn up and tear shit up. So they wanted Black people out in the streets to get killed. That's why they brought out the fake Black panty motherfuckers led by a damn Puerto Rican. That's why, excuse me. That's why they were trying to use these Black feminist women to rile their people up, to get them out in the streets, and these cuckolded Black males that were single mama raised to come out in the streets and try to play hero and shit and follow these white liberals. And thank God that Black Americans are at least awake enough to know that fighting for these foreigners is not y'all's fight. I'm so thankful for that, because imagine the headlines and imagine the political clout they would have garnered off of getting tens of thousands of Black Americans across the country to join in with these white fags and these white liberals to protest ICE and get gunned down. Imagine. And the reason why they haven't pulled out the guns on the crowds yet is because, one, they're crowds of white liberals. Those are basically their puppet masters, the ones that run the Black puppets. And not only that, but the crowds aren't large enough, and any shootings that would occur, it would be very easy to spot the shooters. Thus, their narrative wouldn't work. They need Black death. That's what they need. Look how effective one Black crackhead getting killed in 2020 was to turn up the whole country. Imagine if you had 20 Black people in 4 different cities mowed down by what the fake news says was ICE agents, but were really Israeli Mossad agents. Imagine the turn up then. But because Black people aren't putting themselves out there and putting their lives on the line, their mission is failing. So, Black Americans, give yourselves a pat on the back, because by simply doing nothing, you have thrown a major monkey wrench in the enemy's plan. Now you got all these sleeper cells sitting on all these weapons and all this ammo and nobody to shoot, because y'all not out there making yourselves targets because you're smart enough to know better. This is why all these Black Democrats like Roland Martin and all these clowns trying to encourage Black folks to take to the streets. Don't you dare. Don't you fucking dare. As Iran faces its most intense unrest in decades, authorities are now making a major announcement. They say they've dismantled a terrorist cell responsible for an armed attack in the heart of Tehran. According to Iran's Ministry of Intelligence, the group infiltrated the country through Iran's west borders and struck on the night of January 8th. Officials say the attackers targeted a police station in Tehran, firing more than 850 rounds with military-grade weapons in an attempt to seize the building and its armory. Isn't that the exact same way ISIS attacked Libya and Syria? The same way. Iranian authorities claim the attack killed several police officers, Basij members, and civilians. Iran says security forces launched an immediate operation to track down the suspects. And they caught those motherfuckers, and they about to get put to death, because Iran don't play that shit. Now, let me show you how it all ties together and how it's all being coordinated. Check this out. So I composed a collage of 6 different maps, right? And of these 6 maps, I made an overlay of, I believe, 3 of them. And in that overlay, and it's funny because I use Chat GPT to make the overlay, and then I tried to do a third overlay, and Chat GPT blocked me from uploading more than one image. So I think after I made the first overlay map, they kind of saw where I was going with it, and they were like, "Oh, hell no!" But the first map in the top left, it shows cities where the protests are happening. Take note. You know what? Let me go full screen so you guys can see it better. Take note. Top left corner, protest map. Okay. Top right corner, ICE field offices. You starting to see a correlation already? There's a lot of the same cities where these field offices are located is where the protests are happening, because where the ICE field offices are located is where they're doing the most heavy-handed raids. So they have to have the protest to thwart the ICE operations. Now, the next 2 maps, the one on the left, is the location of sex trafficking cases involving U.S. citizens, reporting to the national headquarters, I don't know, at NHTRC, whoever knows what that acronym means. I forgot to look that acronym up. And be free, right? Now look at all the deep red. The deep red are the spots where it's the most heavily concentrated, right? Now, when you jump over to the map on the right shows all the states where the Somali fraud is taking place. You notice a correlation there too? The sex trafficking and the fraud almost looks like it goes hand in hand. The sex trafficking and the protest almost look like they're in the same cities, same areas. Here, these 2 maps, the one on the left, shows terrorism in the United States. The green dots are terrorist incidents that happened between 2009 and 2017. The orange dots are terrorist incidents that happened between 2017 and the present day. And of course, the map on your right is a basic U.S. map of all the sanctuary cities. Are you guys starting to see the correlation yet? Are you? Well, if you're not, here's a hint. All of this malfeasance seems to be concentrated in the same cities, in the same areas, because these criminal organizations work hand in hand. Now, when we say it's the Democrats running this shit, the maps tell it all. Okay? This is a map of the state of Florida. The one at the top with the green, red, and the blue and all that shit. That's human trafficking, child sex trafficking to be exact. The map in the middle with the orange and green dots, that's domestic terrorism. And then the map at the bottom is the political map that shows the Democratic districts and the Republican districts. You notice something strange? The heaviest concentrations of terrorist activity and sex trafficking activity all happen to be conveniently ran out of Democratic jurisdictions. Now, there's some Republican jurisdictions where this nonsense is going on too, but the vast majority of it, the deepest red highlights, are squarely in those blue cancer spots. This map proves without a shadow of a doubt that the majority of these domestic malfeasance, domestic terrorism, and the sex trafficking is being presided over by Democrats. Now, who else is showing you guys maps like this? Who else on YouTube is showing you guys maps like this? Who else? Who else is breaking it down to you like this? Because I don't see nobody else doing this shit. I don't see nobody else showing you guys the visuals the way I'm showing them to you. And honestly, I wish there were more people doing this kind of research and presenting this kind of information, because my channel ain't nearly big enough to reach enough people. So it's up to y'all to share it, screenshot it, promote the channel, tell people come watch Citizen Man TV, hit the like button, all that shit, hit the donate button, all of that. You know what I'm saying? How many of you guys were aware of this correlation? Oblivion says, hey, Citizen Man, brought here by B Miles. Appreciate you. And shout out to B Miles for promoting me, man. B Miles is my dude, man. I've been rocking with B Miles for years. He really impressed me with the Nasara stuff because I did my own research on it, and he was the one that got me down that rabbit hole in the first place. So shout out to B Miles. I'll always be grateful to that brother for that, because until I heard him talk about it, I was like everybody else when it comes to that. I had no idea that it even existed. But you guys see what's going on here, right? Now, granted, yeah, it's just one state, right? Could be a coincidence. But what if it's not? Here's the entire northeastern United States, including parts of the northern Midwest. What do you see? The same correlation. The terrorism, the sex trafficking, and the Democrats running the areas where it is the most heavily concentrated. This is not a game. This is not a joke. These are people's lives at stake. Victims being moved around under the watchful eye of these Democrats. The perpetrators being protected by these Democrats. Because these crimes are generating large amounts of cash, and some of that cash is being floated right back to the Democrats, who are being paid to not just facilitate these crimes, or to not even really facilitate these crimes, but in the least severe cases, turn a blind eye to it. So they might not all be participating in it directly, but I do believe many of them are. But for the ones who aren't, they're turning a blind eye to it, and they're allowing it. That's why it's mostly heavily concentrated in areas they control, because they profit from it. This is what funds their campaigns. This is what funds their lifestyles. This is what funds their wealth and their businesses. This is how Ilhan Omar went from having 15,000 to 30 million in a year. This is how that happens, by facilitating crime, because crime pays. Unfortunately. And this map here was the one that I created using AI. I used Chat GPT, and this is when, and after I made this map, Chat GPT, I try to do an overlay of this map over the Democrat Republican map, and Chat GPT blocked me from uploading more than one image. So I got this far, and as you can see, it looks a little confusing at first, but when you look at the key, the green dots, terrorist incidents, from 1970 to 2017, and the orange dot are terrorist incidents from 2017 to the modern day, of course. The highlighted areas, sex trafficking cases reported to NHTRC in 2014. Anti-ICE protests are the red squares, 2020. National Guard deployed is the hollowed red squares. And look at this. Everywhere the sex trafficking is heavily concentrated and the terror cells are heavily concentrated, you're seeing anti-ICE protests. because that's where ICE is operating and removing these sleeper cells, and these traffickers and these anti-ICE protests are being staged in an effort to protect these individuals. The maps tell it all. This is why I love maps. I love reading maps, because when you look at the map and you overlay the maps, it tells the story much more clearly. You see, because I can sit here and talk till I'm blue in the face. And a lot of you would get it, and a lot of you would understand it. But seeing it here gives you a much deeper understanding. This is why ICE is so heavily armed. This is why they're being so heavy-handed. And this is why those protesters and those rioters are becoming so aggressive. Because not only are they protecting the illegal aliens, but they're protecting the criminal networks that fund them. And Tar Moody says, Citizen Man, you and Camel Toe like maps and Venn diagrams. Yeah, I guess so, man. I guess so. You know what else me and Camel Toe like? I like getting my balls licked, and she likes licking balls. So, hey, it's two things we got in common. How about that? Dirty Sam Squash says Seattle looks a little south. Yeah, the overlays aren't perfect. They aren't perfect, but yeah, because the cities are all off. The cities are all off. They got Austin over here in Louisiana and shit, because it was two different maps overlaid on top of each other. But Vegas is out here. Seattle's up here. But I just want you to look at the dots. Just look at how the dots align. Yeah, they got Boston down here in Florida. And then Boston up there. Yeah, remember, it's a Chat GPT overlay, so it's not going to be perfect. That's why I put together these collages first before I showed you the full overlay, right? Because the collages basically tell the story of who's really running these criminal networks. The same political party that's facilitating and protecting the criminals. So tonight's topic, this is more than just deportations and fraud. This is the removal of a foreign enemy entrenchment. And the reason why I went over the Iran entrenchment is to give you an idea of how deeply entrenched this enemy is and who is behind these enemies. Yeah, Dirty. It was Chat GPT that did it. Did a pretty effective job, though. I will say that. I will say that. But they are protecting these foreign enemies because these foreign enemies have a job to do, and their job is to take as many American lives as they possibly can so they can blame Trump for it and get him out of office. It's literally the same strategy like I explained to you guys on the last those previous shows. It's the same playbook the Obama administration used in Libya to get rid of Gaddafi. Send in the radicals, dress like the government, get the people out in the streets to protest, and have the radicals in stolen government uniforms on camera killing the protesters. Then use that to garner more support for a larger rebel force to take out the sitting government. Because the objective is to destabilize the country and remove the sitting government. So no matter how many people have to die, that's just collateral damage as long as the objective is met, which is the removal of the sitting government. And have they not been preaching and screaming at the top of every mountain they could find to get rid of Trump, get Trump out of office. They even committed the largest election fraud scheme we've seen in our entire lives back in 2020 to get Trump out of office. To what end? To what end? To open up the borders, to let in more sleeper cells. So if Trump or anybody like Trump was to ever take the presidency and win the presidency and take office again, they could turn up in the streets, commit mass murder, blame that administration, and remove that president. And they even got Republicans turning on Trump, and they've been doing so from day one. That's because these Republicans, they're in on it too. And a lot of them are leftist infiltrators. I played you guys a video. There was this chick, this black chick running for the state assembly in South Carolina, trying to be a state congresswoman in South Carolina. And she was on a recorded prison phone call with one of her friends in prison, which is fucking odd that you're running for public office and you got friends sitting in prison. That in itself was weird. But she's on a recorded prison phone line saying to this man, we need people to run for the other side so we can have control of both sides, so we can change some shit. That's literally what she said. So she exposed their plan. Their plan is to follow the Israeli Mossad playbook, infiltrate both sides of the political aisle so both parties can be on the same page. So when it's time to vote on legislation, everybody votes to legalize pedophilia. Everybody votes to ban guns. Everybody votes to open borders. Everybody votes to impeach Trump, et cetera, et cetera. And when they have operatives on the other side pushing the exact same narrative, the fake news then uses that as a badge of credibility to say, hey, even Republicans agree with us, so you must agree with us too. But we know who those Republicans are, and we know that they're not American, pro-America Republicans. They are Republicans in name only. They just call themselves Republicans, but they don't vote like Republicans and they don't act like Republicans. They vote like Democrats and they support the Democrat agenda, the one world government agenda. See what I'm saying? So you would think what happens in Iran and over there in the Middle East got nothing to do with us here in America. Oh, but it does, because everything that happens over there, it's either a bellwether for what's about to happen over here, or it directly affects what happens over here. And what's happening in Iran is the Israeli Mossad is being mopped up and wiped out of their midst. The infiltration is being dismantled. And Trump's doing the same thing over here. That's why you're seeing all that aggressive military posturing by Trump against Iran, because he's creating a smoke screen to make it seem like he's not on the same page as Ayatollah Khomeini and they're diametrically opposed when they're actually carrying out the exact same mission. The only difference is Ayatollah Khomeini is publicly saying this is Israel that's fucking our country up, and Trump ain't really saying that, but his actions are demonstrating that he's going after the same Israeli Mossad sleeper cells that are tearing up Iran, that are over here trying to tear shit up over here. And I almost guarantee you, once I get my hands on the information pertaining to who's running and who's funding these anti-ICE protests, I guarantee you it's going to be a bunch of small hats. I guarantee it. I'm not a gambling man, but I bet money on that. It's no coincidence that Alex Preddy was a small hat. Ain't no coincidence. So when I say this is coordinated and deliberate, I mean it. It's coordinated and it's deliberate. This is no accident. This is no coincidence. This is all being staged and ran by foreign bad actors. And if you look at who's making the most noise in the Democratic Party against ICE, it's a bunch of foreign infiltrators. The entire Democratic Party is sold out to the one world government. And their job is not to represent you as an American citizen and do what's best for the American people. Their job is to bring you under the one world government and go from oppressing you with the power of the United States government to oppressing you with the power of the one world government, which is even worse. Because at least in America, we still got our guns and our free speech. Under the one world government, we will have neither. Under the one world government, the shit that I do, I'd be in jail for. And there was a time here in America when they had foreign operatives within our government, like Barack Obama, calling for people like me to be jailed. But they couldn't do it and they couldn't get away with it because the First Amendment trumped that shit. So once they realized that they couldn't lock us up, what did they do? They started locking us up digitally, banning our social media accounts, silencing our voices, which it basically amounts to the same thing, silencing of dissidents. Now, all of a sudden, they want to cry about the Constitution. Give me a break. But when I tell you Trump is going after the sleeper cells, this is what I mean. And again, just because they're Iranian nationals and nationals from other countries does not mean that they're not under the control of the Israeli Mossad. Let me tell you, the Israeli Mossad, they're such masters of infiltration. They would have operatives move to a country, whether male or female, marry in that country, gain legal rights in that country, have children in that country, raise their children in that country. But while raising their children, grooming them to take over running the spy network, running the spy op that their parents were running. Like they will literally infiltrate your country and have generations of operatives. That's how serious they are about this infiltration. How do you think they got so many Iranian citizens on their payroll? And this is why the fake news was able to say Ayatollah Khomeini is killing Iranian citizens, because those sleeper cells and those terror cells that were killing the Iranian protesters, a lot of them were Iranian citizens that the Iranian security forces had to take out. So it made for bad optics. But Ayatollah, he stood on business. He was like, no, these are not our people. I don't give a fuck if they're Iranians. These are Israeli Mossad spies that are killing our people. Ayatollah's not playing with Israel. And again, I believe Trump is posturing to stage an attack on Iran, an ineffective attack on Iran, to give Iran the green light to level Israel. I believe that's the move. Because Iran cannot attack Israel without Israel responding in some way. And if America doesn't help Israel when Iran attacks Israel, Israel's response will be to give the order to the sleeper cells here in America to start committing mass violence against American citizens. That's how they have the country held hostage. So Iran can't move on Israel until the mass deportation operations and the busting of these sleeper cells is completed, or at least close to completed. So here's how I believe it's going to play out. The ICE operations continue. The sleeper cells keep getting busted, right? Once that's done and it's safe for Iran to move on Israel without Israel being able to effectively retaliate against American citizens, Trump's going to send the signal by staging another bombing in Iran, just like how he bombed those closed down nuclear facilities. He's probably going to bomb some more empty shit over in Iran and give them forewarning that he's going to bomb it so they can evacuate, kind of like he did with the Russians in Syria. And once that bombing happens, the fake news is going to play it up. Trump attacked Iran. We're at war with Iran and this and that. And there'll be no more action from America against Iran. And then you'll see a barrage of Iranian missiles raining down on Israel like they did back in June. And you notice when Iran bombed Israel back in June, that was around the same time the reports of ICE busting the Iranian nationals in these sleeper cells started coming out. And the sleeper cells were busted before Iran launched their attack. So Trump's one step ahead of them. He knows that they're here. He knows what their plan is. And he's trying to maneuver around it as best he can to thin out their manpower, seize as many weapons as he can, weaken their capabilities so Iran can go ahead and do their thing with Israel. Because these are Iranian Mossad agents. They did not have the ability to respond to Iran bombing Tel Aviv because they were busy trying to replace the manpower that they had lost in the ICE raids. And they were busy trying to regroup with the weaponry that they had lost in the ICE raids. So the ICE raids created enough of a distraction for them and enough of a disruption for them to hold off on their retaliatory attacks. The British Crown is working with the Israeli Mossad, Barnes. Yes, the British Crown is working with them. That's why in Britain they got the open borders and all the liberal bullshit. Canada too, the entire European Union, in fact. So when I say we're living in dangerous times, and when I say stop going out to these fucking protests and stay away from mass gatherings, this is what I mean. Because shit's getting hot between Trump and Israel as Trump slowly pulls away and withdraws from his alliance with Israel. And they are going to try to retaliate. And they're going to retaliate in a very, very sick, demented way. The same way they did in Iran is the exact same thing they're trying to do over here. And Trump's not letting that shit happen. And all those dumbass liberals that are going out there in those protests, they have no idea of the danger that they're putting themselves in. So all the while they're out there screaming, fuck Trump and fuck ICE, by Trump busting these sleeper cells, he's actually protecting their stupid asses. But they're too stupid and brainwashed and under a spell to see it. And guys, don't forget to hit that Cash App, hit that PayPal, hit that Venmo, and support the show. We only got 3 supporters for the night, man. Man, y'all breaking my heart. What, y'all done spent all your money because you're waiting on your tax returns, or you just spent all your money? I don't know what's going down, man. We were doing good in the beginning of the year. All of a sudden, it just slowed down. Y'all don't like my shit no more? Support the show, man. We need that support. But yeah, man, this is all well coordinated, and it's more than just deportations, and it's beyond, and it's deeper than the fraud. This is a foreign enemy entrenchment that we're dealing with. And we have domestic collaborators working with the entrenchment in order to support the entrenchment and thwart any efforts from the Trump administration to remove and dismantle that entrenchment. So they're rolling out everything they got, but they're still coming up short. And they're coming up short because they don't have the level of support that they had before. They don't have the support of the people like they once did, because they've done too much. They've overstepped. And now that the midterms is coming up, by Trump getting all these radical Democrats who were just encouraging the crowds to fight ICE, now changing their tune and doing a 180, they're all committing political suicide, which means this midterm should be a clean sweep. And once that sweep happens and these crooked Democrats are out of Congress, I believe then we'll see some more indictments come down. But there'll be indictments before the midterm. I can promise you that. They will be indictments way before the midterms happen. Trust and believe. But guys, we have been live 2.5 hours, and I got to get up out of here. But before I go, don't forget, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Rumble page. If you haven't subscribed to Rumble, please make sure you do. Also, go subscribe to the Citizen Man channel on YouTube, my backup channel, in case they zap me on Citizen Man TV, because I find myself saying faggot and retard a lot. So I'm trying not to say that too much. But, I mean, there's only so many words you can use to describe these people. And those two seem to be the most accurate descriptors. But I'm trying not to get myself flagged. But in case they flag me, get over to Rumble and the Citizen Man backup channel so you guys can at least stay connected with your boy. And, of course, last but not least, if you felt like the content was worth something and you want to support the show, you can do so by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow. The box opens up. All the links are there. And you can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. The red X through the PayPal is just to remind you guys that PayPal censors comments. So please be cautious about what you say in the comments, because they will freeze your account and mine and try to steal our money. So keep the comments on PayPal surface level. That's what the red X is there for. No free speech on PayPal. And my brother Lee says, small token of support for Wednesday's show. Have a great one. Appreciate your brother Lee with that consistent support, man. You the man. Shout out to my brother Frank with that support on the PayPal. Shout out to Frank. He says, great shows, brother. Appreciate you, Frank. And shout out to my sister Angela. Let me go to the Citizen Man Cash App real quick. Big shout out to my sister Angela on the Cash App. That's our only Cash App for the night. She issued a $5 challenge and nobody took the challenge. I don't know what's happening, man. Y'all don't want to take the challenge? Y'all scared? You know, I don't believe in putting my content behind the paywall, because I think the information is more important than, making $1. But at the same time, it takes time and it takes energy to do these shows. And I try to keep it keep it consistent for you guys. And, that support it does help, and it's much needed, especially now during my slow season. This is like, I've completely lost one stream of revenue because that's seasonal work. And I'm down to 2 from 3, and this one is one of those 2 streams of revenue. And well, making $6, $7, $30 a show just ain't cutting it these days. You know what I'm saying? So I really, really need that support, man. When I ask you guys to support the show, it ain't just because I got money and I want more. You know what I'm saying? It's because the time and the energy that I put into these shows, I could be putting into something else and excuse me, and making money and enriching myself. But I'd rather spend this time with you guys sharing this information. And for those of you who, are able to donate and and give a little token of appreciation. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who show up to watch and build the numbers up and hit the like button, I really appreciate that too. You know what I'm saying? So don't feel bad if you ain't got the money to donate. I understand, and I wish you much financial success, because the more money you make is the more you'll be able to support the show. So, yes, from my own greed, I'm wishing you the best. Yes. Yes. Malintent. Absolutely. But I do appreciate the support. There was a time when I did it for free, and I'm thankful that those days are behind me. But we really got to get these numbers back up in all aspects: the viewership, the subscribers, the donations. We got to get everything up. We got to raise the sales. You know what I'm saying? So don't ever forget that. Always hit the like button when you come to the show. If you want to share the show, share the show. If you haven't subscribed, I strongly encourage you to subscribe. And for those of you that feel so inclined to donate, the donation links are active 24/7. So you don't even have to donate during the show. You could donate after the show on the replay. Shout out to my replay viewers or whatever. You know what I'm saying? However you want to do it. So just always keep that in mind, man. Always keep that in mind. Support your favorite content creators, because we make pennies per show with the monetization. You know what I'm saying? So, and they're not treating us right, because if I wasn't being shadow banned, my numbers would be a lot higher. They would be like they used to be. And when I was getting the big numbers, like 600-700 people per live, 500-600 people per live, they took away my monetization. Now, if I was monetized back then, I wouldn't have to beg for donations, because I'll be making 100 and some change every show, but I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So I'm solely dependent on you, the people, for your support. And the little support that I am able to get, I do appreciate it. And I hope that in the future, more of you guys will be able to support. If everybody in the show on Rumble and YouTube put $1 on the show right now, we'd have $100 in the coffers. Excuse me. In the coffers that quickly, that easily, and it only costs each person $1. Even if you got $2 in your account, what you gonna buy with $2? Put $1 on the Cash App, man. I'm telling you. And I'll tell you something else too. There's a spiritual energy with the donating thing, right? And I noticed this because on days when I donate to my favorite YouTubers and I go live that night, I actually make a pretty decent amount of money. I literally make my money back and then some. So, and that's because I'm donating the truth. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like what they gas you up in church about, like put money in the collection plate and God gonna bless you with more and this and that. And for some people, it actually does work. It really does work. Like there really is a spiritual energy behind, the act of giving. It's almost like the universe sees you put yourself at a loss. So it tends it tends towards justice, towards balance. So if you put yourself at a loss, the universe will self-correct it and replace that loss. You know what I'm saying? So it'll come back to you. You feel me? And I've experienced that personally. So I would like for you guys to get a taste of that and experience that for yourself. Let me be your guinea pig. Put $1 in my Cash App and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying this to try to, finesse money out of y'all or no shit like that. This is real shit that I've personally experienced. And if I didn't experience it, I wouldn't be telling it to you. You feel me? But I do appreciate you guys being here. I do appreciate the love. I do appreciate the support. The numbers have been slowly ticking up, and I think that's because of my awesome thumbnails that I've been making on ChatGPT. And I noticed that the audience on YouTube responds more positively when you put your face out there. So, because before, for years, I would make thumbnails, but I wouldn't have my face in it. But now that I'm putting my face on the thumbnails, I'm actually starting to see a difference. So shout out to y'all. And that's the thing. I've never been one to hide my face. A lot of times I'll do streams and I wouldn't turn my camera on because I'll be smoking and shit. And I don't want y'all to see me doing that on camera. But, other than that, I don't hide. I am not hiding. Y'all see my face. Y'all know who I am. And I'm putting myself at risk here because the information that I'm sharing is undermining the agenda of the establishment. And you know what the establishment does to people who undermine their agenda. And by me showing my face and putting my name out there, I'm literally putting my life in danger because millions of people, if I wasn't being censored from the beginning and I was able to keep my channel by now, I would have had almost 1 million subscribers, if not more, right? But let's just assume thousands of people see my face and hear my voice. So if I'm out in public, I would be recognized by somebody before I knew who they were. They would know who I am before I know who they were. And that's dangerous because if they really wanted to do me harm, I wouldn't be that hard to find. And this is why when I move around, I got to stay dangerous to deter any possible danger coming at me. Like whoever's tasked with getting that citizen, man, I have to move like they're going to have something to think about. Before they approach me, they got to really think about, am I willing to put my life on the line for these motherfuckers by fucking with this man? Or would it be better if I just walk away and keep all my teeth? Like and if you're a truth teller in this game, that's how you got to move. Be peaceful, but stay dangerous. Don't go looking for trouble, but be ready for it if it were to come. Stay in shape. You know what I'm saying? Keep your skills up. Keep a weapon on you. Shit like that. Because we're in a situation where the establishment is looking for blood. They are looking for people to die. Because we see how they capitalize on Renee Good. We see them trying to capitalize on this queer. And they're going to try to capitalize on more deaths if they were to be so lucky to encourage and induce more of it. And they would love nothing more than for some of those victims to be people like us, because they need us to be silent. They need us to capitulate. And those of us who won't stay silent and won't capitulate, we are now a threat to their agenda. And when you're at war, all enemy threats must be neutralized. Whether it be they silence you on social media, and if that doesn't work, they silence you forever in real life. And they've tried both on me, and neither has worked. So my life is on the line. I've already had an attempt on my life 6 years ago. And then I had gang stalkers planted across the street from me, an agitator planted across the street from me, living with his grandfather, who happened to be a county employee of one of the most corrupt blue counties in Florida, which I spent all of 2020 calling out. All of a sudden, this crazy motherfucker moves in across the street and is constantly picking fights with me, and I had to draw down on his ass a couple times. And I believe he was a crash dummy planted there to start trouble with me, to get me to shoot him so I can go to prison. Because I was not about to fight that crazy crackhead motherfucker. He was either going to get shot or stabbed, one or the other. And it got so bad to the point where I was like, you know what? I can't stay here anymore. And I ended up moving out of the entire state of Florida. And I haven't had an issue since, because I haven't been telling people what city and state I'm in. I've been keeping that to myself because I realized that was my mistake the first time. Because when I got in this YouTube game, I thought it was just like it appears on the surface. Just get on camera, speak your piece, your numbers grow, you make your money. When you turn off the camera, you go back to real life and it's all good. No, they will stalk you in real life. And they will come at you in real life. But the good thing for me is I've been studying their tactics for so long that it's very, very difficult for them to get operatives near me without me recognizing that this is an operative. It's very, very difficult. And so far, since I've left Florida, I haven't come into contact with any yet, but I don't want to jinx it. And I will never get on this YouTube and say what city and state I'm in. I will never do that ever again. Because I believe that's what put me in danger. So much so that motherfuckers was in my chat telling me what kind of, after they T-boned my first truck, my old truck, and tried to kill me in that T-bone accident running the red light. I got a new truck a month later after the insurance shit was all settled. And there was a motherfucker in my chat telling me what color truck I had, which means they were watching my house, which means they were not very far away. That creeped me the fuck out. Because if you're just some person on the internet watching me on the internet, how do you know how do you know that I just bought a new truck and what color it is? How did you know that? But they had limited information though, because they made a comment about me being injured, which I sustained no injuries in the crash. So they were wrong about that. So that gave me a little bit of comfort in knowing that, well, they don't know everything. So let them think that I'm injured. Because if they come at me, I'm going to show them just how injured I'm not when I inflict injuries on them. So stay dangerous out here, man. And if you don't feel like putting your face out there and getting involved in this shit and you think it's too dangerous, you leave it up to guys like me, because I got a real good support network of patriots that got my back too. And there was times when my life was in danger over other shit before this whole YouTube shit. And those brothers had my back and they were ready to lay down their lives for me. And I appreciate that shit to the fullest. And this is my way of paying it back, putting my life on the line for them so they don't fall into the trap of the propaganda. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think that'll conclude the show tonight. I want to give a big shout out to everybody for being here. I do appreciate you guys being here, showing your love, showing the support, listening to your boy. You know, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. So I appreciate that. And I will, what day is it? Friday? No, today's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Well, it's Thursday now, but this is Wednesday night show. So I'll be back on Friday. I'll probably hit you guys with a couple of uploads tomorrow night. Last night I was just too tired to do it. I couldn't stay up. So I actually went to bed early, but tomorrow night I'm probably going to hit you guys with a couple of uploads. And then Friday we'll be back. Friday we'll be back with another live with more news. Hopefully there'll be more breaking news, because shit's happening really fast. And, you know, a lot of things are changing. We're starting to see these Democrats do that 180 thing and commit political suicide, which is awesome. I never thought Trump could do it, but I should have known, because he's got the power to lean on motherfuckers. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the love, appreciate the support. I hope you guys enjoyed the Wednesday show, and see you on Friday. Citizen Man out.